Hey everyone, I'm Bradley Bogues. Today I'll be talking about some of the nonverbal cues I've observed in the age of conference calls. I just wanted to start by thanking you all for being here, whether that's because your grade depends on it or you're here for the free food or otherwise. Um, so, nonverbal cues are the backbone of every interaction throughout the day, and in a professional setting can be make or break for your relations with higher ups and coworkers alike. It's really not that hard to think about. Someone who struggles with maintaining eye contact, projecting their voice, or even something antiquated like giving a firm handshake might not enjoy the same approval or be held in the same regard as someone who shows that they're actively listening, smiling often, has their body turned towards the speaker, consistent but not uncomfortable eye contact, and so forth. Um, so, with this, I think it's important to deconstruct the question, what is a nonverbal cue? At its most, broken down into its most fundamental components, a nonverbal cue is the foundation of a first impression and forms the basis of an ongoing opinion. It's communication without words. Um, so, a common saying posits that a first impression is made in the first 7 seconds of meeting someone, with a Princeton study inferring that that number might even be as low as a tenth of a second. This is based on completely subjective traits like appearance, likability, hairstyle. The list goes on down here, and these factors are influenced by an individual's own opinions, value sets, and lived experience. So that is to say, not everyone may like you at first, but there are definitely some behaviors that, at least initially, convince someone that you're meeting that you're worthwhile and you're a friendly individual, which is especially important when engaging with stakeholders, your boss, whoever puts the money in your pocket. Um, so Zoom and conference calls generally have essentially thrown a wrench in the way we understand these cues. It's much more difficult to convey the same sense of interest that makes the speaker feel as though you're present, that you hear what they have to say, that you value their insight on a digital medium. So that's where the approval or high regard I mentioned before comes from. Does your body language affirm your respect for this person? Um, so this affirmation is something we look for constantly in interactions with new people, as your subconscious essentially asks, does this person like me? So with that, I'd like to get into two examples of this. Example one, look at him. This man is absolutely beaming to ask you a question. Everything from his sunny disposition to his perfectly buttoned up shirt, which let me emulate really quickly, um, tells you to trust this man. However, less than ideal. This guy is unfortunately not the ideal Zoom employee and bears no resemblance to me whatsoever. He looks lost. You can barely see him because of the backlighting. His shirt is inside out and backwards. And he clearly lacks any sense of decorum. From my time at from the Cornell Atkinson Center of Sustainability as a science communications and marketing intern, I noticed how Zoom as a platform led to new ways for these cues to manifest and watch in real time as certain digital norms became set. In a sense, it kind of put them into the light, so to speak, and revealed the inherent superficiality behind these corporate interactions. Interestingly enough, these coming examples of what not to do came to me while observing and looking critically at the ways my coworkers and I showed our affirmation within each other's and our own bosses. To preface, I present these cues not to make you hyper attentive to your body language next time you're in a meeting, but just to hopefully identify areas where you may be sending a negative impression to someone who you have deep respect for. So the first cue is the nod. Nodding is inherently the most basic way to express interest, affirmation, and engagement with what a speaker is saying. It's telling them that you're engaging with the material, and it's even better if coupled with clarifying questions or comments praising certain aspects of the presentation or of content. However, if you nod almost nonstop throughout a 2-hour meeting, you don't necessarily convey interest. You just kind of serve to show that you're a little bit insincere and maybe make people uncomfortable. So with that, I would say you should nod often, but with purpose. With the second cue, I would like to talk about the look. Now that sounds super vague, but it is most identifiable by the furrowed brow and the upturned gaze, kind of as if you're super pensive and physically watching the gears turn above your head as you listen to a certain presentation. This is most commonly observed when a speaker poses a question that no one wants to admit they didn't hear, or coupled with the nod when you really need to drive home that you're interested in the quarterly report. I personally was a king at this. One time I woke up 2 minutes before an 8 o'clock meeting, threw on a collared shirt, didn't even have my contacts in, and really, really needed to convince our overall thought leader that I was listening to what he was saying, let alone could read the words on the slides. I'm very blind. So with that, I will get into my third and final cue, the off camera. Having your camera off is probably one of the most understated cues that just completely throws any interpretation out the window. The entire basis of this talk assumes the person you're engaging with can see you. Eliminating that entirely, in other words, removing yourself and any interpretation of body language or cues shows several things. One, that your attention is elsewhere. Two, you may not be present at all. And three, the meeting, and more importantly, the engagement with the speaker is not a priority to you. So here's an honorable mention slide. As we said before, know your audience. So this next picture is an actual Slack exchange between myself and my advisor, who up until that moment, I presume to be my boss. Please know your audience and know the corporate stratification of your association. Typical nonverbal cues in the age of Zoom tend to be exaggerated and almost laughable in the case of the nod and the look. But don't let one interaction be the difference between your higher-ups giving you interesting, fulfilling work that shows that you're going to make a tangible difference versus pushing paper, especially if that interaction is your first. Thank you.